Welcome to the Home Building Hub, your essential podcast guide to building your new home. Hosted by industry experts Colin Bischoff and Darren Brennan, this conversational podcast will help better educate you about all things new home building so you can avoid costly mistakes and enjoy your building experience to the fullest, no matter which home builder you choose.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Home Building Hub. You're with Colin and Darren, the co-hosts as always. And today we want to talk about, I think, a pretty interesting topic, Darren. I have been waiting for months to talk about this. I think it's time because we've had some positive things happen after quite a few negative things, Daz, in our industry. And I'd like to talk people through with you about the one big question: is it safe to build right now? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Mate, I think it's a great topic to chat about, and certainly things are ever evolving. So I'm sure this subject will do the same, mate, as we roll through. So it's certainly very relevant right now. I think just given consumer confidence overall out there, and some of the stats I'm hearing though is that consumer confidence is somewhat on the rise, which is good. So I think a stat the other day said a measure is that anything above 100 is a good number, and it's sitting at 80 right now, but it was as low as 50 in some of the time gone by over the last couple of years. So I think there's certainly things looking more rosy as time kicks along. So it's good.
Yeah, I just sort of felt as that we've got a sense of openness and I think transparency on this podcast. We do our best to keep it objective, as in we talk about obviously pro building, but we don't talk about our businesses very often that we work for, and we don't promote them or anything like that. We're trying to give the listeners and the viewers some, some help, education, advice, tips, tricks, whatever it may be, and in this case, some updates about what's been happening. And so rather than you taking 100% of your advice from a family member, Uncle Joe, who may not have built a home for a number of years, or from people who are taking a Facebook group post, and you know what I mean, like taking it from one source that I guess has always been the case is not the right view. You need to be talking to builders and understanding and making your own decision. But we thought we'd shed a little bit of light what we've been through as an industry, how it sort of sits right now. And at the end of this, we're going to give you the top three, I think positives, Darren, would be good at the moment, but also the top three challenges for us as an industry. So this sort of came about talking to a few people in the industry and some customers as well. And just determining like where their level of confidence sits at the moment. So
for sure.
Des, do you want to kick? You go. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, mate. Thanks to all the listeners as well and people viewing it on YouTube, etc. We really appreciate that. And we do have a fee for the podcast, which is if you get a chance to share it with one other person, we'd really appreciate that. And to those guys that are doing that for us, thank you. We do, very grateful for your support. Also, it's a really easy thing to leave a 5-star review, and it goes a long way to promoting the podcast. As we say, we do this because we enjoy it. We do it to pass on value to consumers out there. We know we've got a lot of industry friends who listen, and again, thanks to those guys. But feel free to share the podcast anywhere you can. It'd go a long way to growing our audience, and really appreciate that. So let's kick it off, mate.
Great. So you can kick off first, Darren. Let's talk about. I'm just going to pluck a date really, but let's say mid last year, pre-July 2023-ish. What did we go through? What did we experience? Let's highlight some of those things if it's okay, just to put this in perspective and in terms of what we've been through as an industry.
It's probably the preceding 3 years to that, Cole, really.
Yeah.
With COVID kicking in, coming out of, we had the Banking Royal Commission, back in, I'm going to say 2017, 2018, and things started to build a little bit of confidence coming out of that over time as people sort of got over, the new lending rules and stuff. And we thought things were going pretty good. And I don't remember the exact date, but I do remember it was the day I was about to go to the Grand Prix, and this thing called COVID was starting to cut loose a fair bit, and they stopped the Grand Prix, and the world from that day forward turned upside down, I guess. So on the back of that, and rightfully so, the government did drive some pretty significant incentives to the building industry for people to encourage them to build. So you had $25,000 home builder grant out there, which the stimulus package that was there was enormous and really, I guess, well accepted by the industry and well accepted by the consumer out there. But what that did do was it did firstly suck up a lot of the titled land that was in the market. It then drove enormous sales in the land market and then had people rushing to builders to try and get a contract signed within the required timeframes. So there was this obviously a surge at that point, and probably I think that what builders probably didn't realize was how much of a shortage of supplies and trades it was going to be on the back of that. And that was also because the government was hugely spending into other government projects, which they're still doing now. And that's taken up a lot of the trade-based, material stuff. I remember at one stage hearing that you weren't going to be able to get sand. Like the government had gone into some of the sand quarries and basically bought all of the forward supply of that. Like for the tunnel, you've got the Westgate Tunnel going on. They bought every bit of sand out of quarries. So it was going to be like, how are we going to get sand? We need sand in our slabs. We need sand when we brick a home. How are we even going to get sand, for example? Just crazy stuff going on. Obviously, timber shortages was an enormous one in that time frame. So I think, one of the big ones, obviously, or the biggest of all, was COVID. But then the flow and effect of that, I know we had some other points there, Cole. Maybe you kick on to a couple of those as well.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I want to preface it by saying this is not a making excuses for, this is just stating what happened.
Reality rather than excuses.
So a lot of orders were taken, and definitely in hindsight, a lot of those shouldn't have been taken. And as I shared last week, like I've been through the process of liquidation with the builder, and so it's certainly not lost on me. Like for those who listen now, who've been through or going through that process, this is not any distaste towards you. It's just we want to let people know who are considering building right now, is it okay to build right now? And the short answer is it's a lot better now and safer to build right now, and we'll explain why. But when you go towards that, Darren, it's important to highlight, well, where did we come from? So that's sort of where we're coming from here. Huge delays. So for us, we had massive delays. Like it was just 18 months, nearly 2 years for builds, and a lot of angry customers ringing up saying, what's happening, and not having an answer for them. That was the most frustrating part. And like, yes, we heard about the delays and all that sort of stuff, but no one assumed like what was coming. And I think what happened was it was just something like it was a freight train that couldn't be stopped. But it was pretty crazy. And I guess what I want to acknowledge is that it led to all these liquidations of builders and like I said, angry customers. Media reports were just horrendous, and rightfully so, I think too. We're going to touch on that a little bit later, Darren. But yeah, so I think the
other interesting learnings out of some of that too, Cole, was I had no idea. I've been in the industry a long time, certainly at the front end of the business, so the sales end of the business. But I had no idea, for example, that all the majority supply of our timber was coming out of Russia and Ukraine, and then starts a war. So, supplies coming out of there, difficult to get, worldwide demand, because all governments were doing the same. So it wasn't just the Australian government. It was worldwide where governments were spending money to try and drive their economies. It was the only way they could do it. So they were going into debt to do so. And that was, really any opportunity to gather supply, people were like right around the world. So it was some interesting learnings too, and watching how businesses needed to adapt. You had local supply lines, you had imported product coming in, and how that sort of all rolled into one. So it was, again, I found that I learnt a lot over that period of time about our industry, and more of that stuff too, which was great. And I think that's some of the lessons and great bits that we as participants within the industry have been able to pick up on, and I'm sure likewise consumers. I'm not sure how many people knew that their frame of the home was coming from Russia at that point, and like that sort of stuff going on. So it's really interesting,
Yeah.
part of my journey in the building industry, I guess.
Yeah, totally agree. It just opened up things that he'd never even thought about, to be honest. But I would say one that may be overlooked from time to time is that what clients went through was crazy, and I myself being one of those clients. But the other thing was what builders and their staff went through was extremely stressful. And there's not a builder out there who, I guess, within the ones that we sort of deal with, they're not out there to hurt anyone or go into the ground. But I saw the impact on the people in our industry, Darren, and talked to a lot of them about it, and they were just in such a bad state. People would, post all that, mad rush, and then the deliverable component of getting those homes to site and building them, like, it was very difficult. So what I
I
want to
think
acknowledge
also,
is,
Cole, in
hey,
that early 2023 bit, I think there was almost a mini recovery starting to happen. There was a bit of positivity going on, and then somewhat out of the blue, I just got back from overseas, and I think I rung you, and the Porter Davis collapse happened as well, and that was a real, I guess, a big earthquake sort of moment for the industry to see such a big builder go down, and then in the residential housing industry. And that had an impact right across the eastern seaboard, from Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia. It impacted right across the board, and just made, where people were getting back to some level of trust in builders, that just evaporated almost immediately, and everyone wanted to know your financial statements and all this sort of stuff of how do we know that you're going to be okay.
Well, it
As a
wasn't even a consideration, was it? That was literally unbelievable.
yeah,
And it just went, and it hammered and had such an impact that we're still dealing with now, because there still are builders that are struggling to get through their legacy jobs, and there still are builders out there. But I think let's lead into post July 2023-ish, around that period. I think it's really important to highlight we've acknowledged what we went through and the challenges we had then, and still to this day, there's always going to be, like the insurance premiums that we had last week announced and whatever, these things are going to come. So price increases will come as a result. But there was nothing like what we went through back then. So what I'd like to talk about, Darren, if it's okay, is let's talk about the people who perhaps deposited mid last year up until now, recent times. How do you think their build experience has been, and what's your feedback from you working at Metricom, one of the biggest across the whole country?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones is that build timeframe coming back in. So, there's been less sales made, so there's less customers on everyone's books, and that was expected. You can't go from a boom and expect that to continue. So what you've seen is jobs getting to site quicker. There's been slowly but surely an increase in available titled land, whereas 2 years ago you wouldn't see a title block anywhere, and it was literally zero in some corridors. So we're seeing titled land available, so people can buy a block of land, get to site fairly quickly, and then see their home built, really promptly. We're seeing some amazing times on site, which is sensational for those people out there. And that I think speed is one of the key elements to making people happy. No one wants to stand in a queue waiting for a coffee. If they walk in and it happens pretty timely, they walk out pretty happy most times. Well, the same when you build a house. So I think that side's been really, really important, and that does help in the customer satisfaction stakes, I guess. And what are your thoughts there, Cole?
Yeah, build timeframes, I think, one of the top of the list in terms of discussion with clients who are looking to build. So you're talking about like a massive builder, and your timeframes came down. And I'm more referring to smaller to mid-sized builders that we deal with, and it's actually reflective of exactly the same thing. So I can actually confidently, and have been for a number of months, prove and advise clients that we're sort of sitting that single story 5 to 6 month mark. And it's not just me saying that, it's client after client after client that we're now handing over who've deposited last year, and we built the house and there's a month in between for Christmas and the New Year break. And these clients are happy. So it sort of led to the next point, like satisfaction levels are happy. In 2020, sorry, Daz, in 2023 and prior, I'd be dealing, truth be told, we'd be dealing with 3 or 4 phone calls of angry clients, abrupt clients, because it's taken too long to build their house, because the pricing keeps going up, because of these sorts of issues that we shared earlier. I haven't had, and I don't recall the last time that happened. I haven't had it. We've had clients really happy, clients who deposited last year, built a house, we've handed it over, and they're wrapped, and we're getting a couple of nice reviews from it, and it feels amazing to be back at that point. Not only Metricon, one of the leaders of the industry, that sort of shows one side of the spectrum. I'm talking about those of us out there that are dealing with builders who don't have the resources that Metricon have, but they're still getting through it. They're managing their numbers. They're not selling as many. They completed the legacy jobs and they're moving through the process. So that's definitely one that I'm really happy to see build timeframes being realistic again, and giving clients that confidence that it'll be done. I just generally say, look, allow 3 months, sign the contract, allow 3 months to get to site, allow 6 months to get the build done. That's about your best time frame, and that's what we're actually delivering. So it's nice to see that.
Absolutely. And I think what happens on the back of that is to those people who get that, tell their friends. So we're getting much more and more of the positive, which again builds confidence, I guess. When they're telling a friend that, my builder did this for me, and they were timely, and the build was of pretty good quality, and because again, as the numbers have dropped, some of the lesser quality trades out there, the builders don't accept that at that point. When they're flat out, they sometimes have no choice. It's like build their house with a lesser quality person and tolerate the lesser quality versus the build taking another year while we're waiting for a trade to become available. So, that side's really positive too. And what it also does is that it puts pressure back onto that trade, if they are doing an average job, to come back and fix their work. And these are the challenges that builders do deal with. They don't want their reputation being tarnished by a trade that, might be having a tough day for whatever reason. They've done a crappy job, and your house you're not pleased with. Well, the builder's not necessarily pleased with that either. So they're trying to manage that to the best of their ability as well, I think
sorry, to share a bit on that. The one thing that surprised me through the whole building delayed period was the impact that the snowball effect, or the collateral impact of. So you talked about, everyone knows about timber shortages, right? No one really acknowledged the concrete rates going up first, right? To
or
get
steel.
the concreter out and the steel, and before timber's done on site, actually what happened over the course of the last couple of years is it went through every stage of the building process. We literally stood back and watched it happen. The builders were reporting, oh no, the concrete's gone up, steel's gone up, timber's gone up because we can't find
get
it.
waffle pods.
Well, like waffle pods, every step of the process. And then after timber, it continued to happen right through to roof tilers, right through to a renderer at the end. Like, it happened with every step of the process. I've seen it happen, and we've actually gone through it full circle. And what I did see is I saw only some trades and suppliers hurt their builders by saying, "Look, I'm on the front doorstep. I'm ready to do your job, but you have to pay me another $4,000 because builder C over there, they're they're going to pay me more." Some did that. Some went, no, we've got genuine costs and increases coming our way, trades and suppliers, because they did. It's not just that the builder cops it because the trade's copying it and the supplier's copying it, right? So they went through a really tough time themselves, suppliers and trades. And some aligned with their builder and said openly, honestly, how we're going to do it. We'll get through it. I'm with you. I'll stick with you. Some decided, no, I'll just take the highest bidder. I can understand why they did it. Some of them but what happened is after we got through each phase, then you had the maybe some of the concreters who were acting a bit like that. And again, I'm repeating, not all, just some concreters who went to their builder who they'd been in a relationship with for a number of years. So now I'm just going to take the highest bidder. Then they came back with the tail between the legs, like a number of months later, because okay, we're back to a bit of normality, back to the start of the process. So it was such an interesting thing to experience, and it just reinforced, Darren, the relationship between a builder, their trades, and their suppliers was so pivotal in this process. Just to have an open discussion about where the rates need to be to make sure the suppliers are okay, and where the rates need to be to keep the trade in business. Because if the builder's making it too hard for them, then the trade doesn't have a business. So they're all businesses that are connected and interconnected. So it was an interesting process. Yeah.
I think the other thing that's happened, and a lot of these jobs haven't made it to site yet, but there's also been, in the last 8 months, significantly, certainly in Victoria, maybe more than others, but some of it's countrywide, significant changes to the regulations as well. So there's been the new 7-star NCC whole of home, which we've spoken about on previous podcasts. You've had the stone come in, the silica free, the banning of crystalline silica stone and the impact that that's had, and then trying to find a solution to that. And some of the solutions are great, by the way, on that, Cole. And I know, there are now some much more affordable options back matching what you would have got previously, which is fantastic, in a crystalline silica free form, which we're loving. But also you've had the gas regulations come in. So can't you have gas in your home, around planning. So, all these different little changes that have just added challenges, but they've also added headaches, costs, change of colours, change of circumstance to people, consumers, people who are building a home. We've had people on site having to change colour of their bench tops. We've had, people who thought they could have gas in the home, finding out they couldn't have gas in the home, these sort of things that have just been challenging. So, they're part of the just the nature of the industry. But geez, it'd be nice to have some of that stuff just not pop its head up for a little while. We just had some real smooth sailing without any headaches like that for a period of time. I think would be great.
Yeah, it's sort of, price increases are inevitable in our industry, and the builders' ability to control those is what they lost over the course of that COVID period. It was just like, wow, another one, bang, 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 like. Whereas now, like, we had insurance premiums increase a week or so ago, Darren, so 60 up to 65%. I keep hearing 63, 64 or 65, but let's call it in the midst. And that's going to be, it could be $2-3 grand. It could be, depending on the builder, but that's going to come across. And I would say it's for people to understand, like, you can expect your builders, not all, but some will pass on some price increasing. We're about to do it as in next week, and some will do it over the course of the next 6 weeks, so just understand that's back to a more stable discussion around what they need, what they need to cover, and it'll be passed on, as per normal. So I think that's a good sign too, that it's just it hasn't been done like it's urgent. It was the decision yesterday to pass on clients tomorrow and things like that. So I think that's a good sign too.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, a bit of this has been a little bit of, doom and gloom in some of that conversation too, but there's certainly, it's been an interesting, probably 4-year window now. But what do you see, Cole, as the positives for the industry right now? Where are you seeing that going?
Yeah, so I think to wrap this up for people, top 3 positives that and I guess the top 3 challenges for us. So in the positives column, I think build times, as we said, they've come back. They've come back to reality, and something that you don't need to be as in fear of. I haven't heard of a builder taking 12 months. There will be someone out there that's doing that, but from the builders that we generally deal with, the volume stuff, they come back to reality. So that's number 1. As I said before, customers being happy again is number 2, and that for me and the staff that we have, it's such a pleasant thing. That we're building, every single building, there's always going to be a left and a right. There's bits that don't always line up, and there's bits that need to be addressed along your journey, as it's a long journey, right? But in general, at the end of the day, the customers are happy, and that makes the staff happy, and that makes it a bit more enjoyable to come to work again, Darren. So that's a really good positive. And what I'd say for you out there who's thinking about building right now, there's actually some really good opportunities. Builders have got their heads around the numbers. Land's not going off the shelf. It's not flying off the shelf. So there's some good land opportunities out there. So if you're buying house and land, or if you've got a block already, talk to your sales consultant from whichever builder you want to go to, 1, 2, or 3 of them, and find out what opportunities they've got for you in terms of promotions, in terms of what's on the table to get you to proceed with building sooner rather than later.
It's interesting you say on that, the land opportunities too. I was with one of the large land real estate agents out there a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, and they've voiced the fact that if you're not asking for a discount on land and you're not getting a discount on land right now, then there's something not quite right. So, if you're looking to buy a block of land, you want to be getting a discount, and the numbers they're talking was sort of 20, maybe 25 grandish is the number, so at a minimum level. So make sure you're asking that question, when you're buying a block of land, and you do your research though, because again, if the block of land you're buying is already 25 grand cheaper than the market, well, you're probably not going to get another 25 grand off.
Yeah.
But ask that question, do your research so you know exactly where you stand on a land pricing point of view. But there is a good opportunity there for sure.
I think be realistic too, because it sort of leads to our first of our top 3 challenges, Darren. Which is?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly there's good opportunities out there to be chatting with builders, but be mindful. There's a limit, there's a bottom line, and be mindful of how far you can push that envelope, because there's just not an endless pit of money that people can give away. And understand that if you're getting it ridiculously cheaper, and we're talking significant discounting at a crazy sort of level, then start to question, what aren't I getting? Because there's got to be a trade-off, right? So it's not just yes, to some degree, builders will discount. They've got bins to fill. They've got businesses to keep running. So they'll consider those sort of options. But there's a limit. So, don't be so scrupulous on that. And it's interesting. I know I was chatting to a customer last weekend, and they were adamant that we needed to give them an additional $15,000 discount just because that's where they said the number is. And I'm like, I haven't got that to give you. I'm really sorry. So, we walked away from that customer and said, look, we wish you the best of luck. If you're happy with our price, that's where we are. That's the best we can do. If it's not, that's okay. We appreciate that. And if another builder's willing to build it for you for that price, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that it goes well. We can't. We've got overheads to run. So.
Reminds me of an experience we had 2 weeks ago with one of our sales consultants, and a client was drilling us for a better price than the cheapest builder out there. They went to them, to another one, to us, to them, around the cycle. And I told the consultant, I didn't say wish them the best of luck. I perhaps was a little more, direct than that, just telling them that they can piss off. Like, I didn't tell the client, I told the consultant politely, can you just tell them to piss off? These are the clients that caused a fair bit of what went on in the first place. So I get quite frustrated when clients do that. I just said, not interested. And some builders will say, okay, we'll keep going because we really desperately need the build. And that's what you're doing to a builder. So please don't be that client. Like, if you like your consultant, you like your builder, you like your plan, you like your quote, and they've given you a little bit and you're happy and it's in budget, God, just go ahead with that builder.
Price for a good product, right?
It's not. Let me explain one thing. If you have a dirt cheap house and land package or a building price, I can assure you, absolutely categorically, that the cheap builder does not have some magic crystal ball or magic resource that enables them to get high quality products and amazing trades at a cheaper rate than e.g. Metricon or e.g. any of our builders or any other builder out there. The truth is, and you already know this, so don't go so hard on your poor builder. If you are grinding for the cheapest quote, and that's the one you're going to pick against our advice many times on this podcast, Darren, you can expect cheaper material, you can expect less qualified and cheaper trades, and as a result, you can expect a house that will most likely and potentially have more issues than if you just had a stuck with someone that was 10 grand more and maybe give you a better experience with better resources and a nicer client portal along the way to inform you of your updates or whatever it may be. So, yeah.
I remember there was a great line, Colin. It said there's 3 things to consider: good, cheap, and fast. And you can only pick 2.
Yeah.
So if it's good and cheap, it won't be fast. If it's cheap and fast, it won't be good.
Yeah.
It's just perfect, mate. So
Does
that's
make sense.
That's
Yeah.
life. That's just a life metaphor, full stop,
Yeah.
So I guess number 2, the media coverage out there, the doom and gloom, they're still, continually pumping out. And as we know, in the media, bad news sells stories. So not good news sells stories normally. Bad news sells stories. People want to hear that. And, so we expect that we'd love to see some more positive news out there, some more positive reinforcement of those customers that are having an amazing experience now, because there's a lot more of those than that are having negative, I guarantee you, right? So we'd love to see a bit more of that out there. I think the third one, Cole, is interest rates. And I think that, the real shift for the industry and for people to be able to make a decision will be interest rates. One positive is in just a few days' time, everybody's getting a tax cut. So there will be a little bit more money as that filters through for people, and they get a few more pay slips through. It'll show they've got a little bit more income, that they'll be able to borrow a little bit more. Exactly what that looks like, I don't know, it might be 20 grand that you can borrow more because of the interest rate. Because of the tax cuts, but also I think once we start to see interest rate cuts at some point, it would be really, I think we'll see that confidence come back for consumers. And I understand why, because a lot of people are at their maximum capacity already. And it doesn't do us any good when the RBA is coming out. And I'm not sure they're sitting on the fence right now. They're pretty open about the fact that there's every chance they could put interest rates up. And every economist out there does not agree with that pretty much. Everyone's suggesting there's only one move, which will be the next move. And when that is, we don't know. Maybe late in the year, could be early next year. But the next move is more likely down than up. But then the Reserve Bank, this week came out and said, but, it's almost like using a stick. That may go up, it may go up. We may have to. Well, I think if they want to ruin our economy, let them put them up.
Yeah.
I think we won't be worried about building houses. We're worried about everyone out there, every business, every job. So let's hope that they open their eyes a bit more to that. And they're smarter people than I am. Don't worry about that. But tell you what, some of those economists and stuff that are out there talking about this greater experts, they're certainly very vocal at the moment that the Reserve Bank is walking a pretty tight line in terms of where they're heading, and we want to make sure that line doesn't snap and we all end up in a bit of a free fall because of it. So, some minor interest rate relief would no doubt help everybody, and that would certainly bring some confidence back in. So, love to hope the Reserve Bank governor listens to our podcast. It took some great advice from you and me, Colin, and it'd be fantastic if that was the case.
Yeah,
I'm sure they are, but I might
share
it with her anyway and just see if she can have a listen and jump on board and help us all out there. It'd be fantastic.
That'd be lovely. Yeah, share it along, Darren. I think the problem we have, or the challenge in this top 3 with interest rates, is not interest rates themselves. I mean, if you go to a finance broker and they tell you what you can borrow and you can afford on the current day interest rates, they don't do it on current day interest rates. They actually have a buffer, which we've discussed in previous podcasts. Right? So if you can borrow now based on what your broker tells you, you're fine, right? The interest rates are not the issue. It's the narrative that keeps coming out in line with the media coverage as well.
And that buffer of 2.5% to 3% in most cases, is significant. I don't think there'd be anybody listening to this podcast. In fact, I don't think there'd be many people out there at all that would think that interest rates could go up from where they currently are by another 2.5%, but they've got to lend to you against that. Like,
Yeah.
the country will go broke if that's the case. So,
Yeah, it's
needs
interesting.
to be a bit smarter around that.
Nice. Well, folks, thank you again for watching. Thank you again for listening. If you like what you heard, please jump on, as Darren said earlier, and give us a 5-star review on the platform you're on. If you want to learn a little bit about myself or Darren, who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing the podcast, all that sort of stuff, just go back to episode number 1. And any questions, you can jump on our podcast website, which is homebuildinghub.com.au. Contact us. Jet your questions through there and we will come back to you. So other than that, Darren, anything else?
Nah, mate, that's been a good podcast, good discussion. And, if you're thinking about building, what we've always been advocates for is the best time to do it's now if you can afford to do it, and you'll look back at these times down the track and go, gee, I'm glad I did that, or what a great decision that was.
Yeah.
Even in the peak times of, some of the other challenging times throughout that I've sat through over the last 20 years, anyone who's bought looks back and goes, I've had a roof over my head, I've had security for my family, and I look back now 5-10 years later and I've got equity in this property. And that's what the joy of this industry is that it does provide shelter and it does provide financial gain in most circumstances. So
yeah, nicely said. Anyone who has those interest rate concerns, please jump back to the episodes, scroll through the episodes. There's a couple there with finance brokers talking about that. It will educate you and put your mind at ease as to how that actually works. So thanks again, guys, for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on that next one. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Home Building Hub. As part of the podcast, we have to be a little careful to cover ourselves on a legal standpoint. So we do have a disclaimer. Whilst we're all about providing value to you, this podcast should not be considered legal or financial advice. It does contain general information only, and you should seek out independent professional advice on your own personal situation before you make any legal or financial decisions.
1